Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Six here with my man Nick Huff, and about to break down The Return. Good to see you, man. No, I appreciate you, man, once again.
Ever since we did our series for Bobby Tarantino 2, everyone's like, when are you going to do something again with Six? When are you going to do something with Six?
I know, man.
Here we are.
Yeah, the fans wanted it, so we're here.
Exactly. Going from a Bobby Tarantino turn-up tape to now producing Young Sinatra 4.
Yeah.
As a producer, how do you shift gears for that?
Ever since I started producing, I've always tried to do like different types of stuff, you know? Like, I've always loved the trap shit. I've always loved, you know, the chopping samples, beat breaks, you know, that's how I started. But I love all music, so I've always done that. So honestly, like, my practice like prepared me for moments like this, you know what I mean? Like, where I can just get in that Bobby Tarantino 2 zone for like a good like month, you know, and just do some hard trap stuff. And then it's actually not that hard to go over to, you know, the Young Sinatra stuff because, like I said, man, I've always been doing that, and that's like my passion, like the Dilla stuff, you know, like we talk about that all the time. So
shout out to Dilla.
Exactly, that shirt's crazy. So going over to this was so much fun because I knew like the type of stuff I had to make. Like, it put me in that zone of like back in the day, like in the basement, you know, like trying to get that emotion back. So like, you know, we did it like 3 or 4 times already. It was just in me trying to go back to grab that moment again, you know.
What does it mean to put out a Young Sinatra project at this point in your career? Does it take you back to kind of like...
Oh, I love it, man. Yeah, because that's like the foundation of all this. And, you know, like the last couple of years with the success of like Everybody, you know, 1-800, which is an incredible song that, you know, did so much for us. And, you know, with One Day, with Ryan Tedder. But like, I always was like, man, I can't wait to drop this so we let the fans know, like remind them that, you know, Logic can rap his ass off. But also for those fans that, which is awesome, that got hip to us to 1-800, like through 1-800, they can see this side of us too. So it was like, it was amazing because of that. But also like, when we were doing the Young Sinatra stuff back in the day, we were nowhere near as big as this. So now it's cool to just show people that we're still the same dudes trying to make like good hip hop music, you know, like no matter how big we get. So like that feels really cool that we can like do a boom bap album, you know, right now.
Were you intentional on this project of wanting to kind of have a soulful sample vibe? Because I know a couple projects ago, maybe it was the last project, we talked about, you know, sampling and publishing and all this different stuff, but there's definitely a feel that comes with sampling.
100%.
Is that something that when you were going to this project, you're like, I think I want to go back and do a little bit more sampling, even though maybe it eats up more of your publishing, or what was that process?
No, that was definitely like a decision I made like on purpose. In order to get that feeling, you know, I feel like the feeling is most important. Like when you start doing stuff based on like splits and percentages, like that's when like the art gets messed up, do you know what I mean? So yeah, like I really was like, man, like I know I'm gonna take some L's on some samples here and there, but at the end of the day, like the feeling and the emotion of the record is most important. So that's what I care about, honestly. Getting the music out there no matter what it takes, even if it's me, you know, sacrificing some of my splits or whatever, but I don't really care about that, honestly. Like the feeling of a good song coming out is better than anything. So
that's dope.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Speaking of amazing samples, The Return.
The Return, yeah.
Has the Nina Simone sample. The part of the song that you sampled, the Satisfy My Hungriness, to me embodies what The Return is, right? It's like you're trying to satisfy that hungriness. How did you come about that sample? Like what was that like?
Yo, so I've wanted to sample Nina Simone literally probably since I started making beats. And her music is incredible. And I feel like it takes a certain skill level to actually dive into a Nina Simone sample and chop it up and stuff. Because I literally tried for 8 years maybe. And it never came out like something cool that I liked, you know.
When you say it takes skill level to do that, why is it so hard to...
Because your ear, like, especially like if I play you the sample, there's literally, she says, let me fly away for like 0.5 seconds or something, you know? Like, I wasn't listening to samples like that back in the day. I was listening to more of like, oh, let's see if I can find like a loop, you know, like a 4 or 8 bar loop of like music, of like strings or piano or something. But this was just like a beautiful vocal loop, and I feel like people can't even really hear that in the beat. Like when Logic starts rapping, underneath the sample is pretty sick. So the intro sample is what you're talking about. The satisfied is all you. Yeah, so I heard that and I was like, there's something about that. It gives me a dope feeling. You know what I mean? And I'll pull up this original.
Satisfied.
Let's see. Yeah, right here. So, much slower.
Satisfied.
This is the original.
That's the original. So that was just like part of the song, you know, like, you know, maybe like a minute through. I was like, damn, that's really cool. And then another section of the sample, which this is my favorite part of the whole sample, because it goes from like kind of like melancholy and sad into,
Let me fly away.
you know, kind of like more happy and stuff. So I was like, man, like there's something about just,
Let me fly away.
it's like a conversation almost, like the intro going into the verse, like back and forth, like satisfy, and then like let me fly away, you know. So that was really cool. So I was like, man, like I had that first, and I didn't know what drums to really put on it. So I was just listening to a bunch of old stuff, and I know we talked about this, but the Talib, you know, I was like, get by in some straight Kanye, Talib zone, you know.
Yep.
And shout out to No ID too for like the Nina Simone inspiration, like Story of OJ. I feel like I made this like maybe a week after Story of OJ.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. It was just something about how Dion chopped up that Nina Simone sample. I was like, man, like that's the skill I'm talking about. Like where he took like a section, like a word from like here, this part of the song, and like combined it with, you know, a sentence from here, like that she said in like the first part of the song, and he put it together like a puzzle, you know, and I thought it was really cool. So that definitely inspired me to do like some super hard drums, you know what I mean?
Is that how you approach making a song? It's kind of like a puzzle?
Especially when I'm doing samples, yeah. Even Alchemist said that. He said like when he sits down to do samples, he doesn't think about it before. He chops it up and then figures it out like a puzzle rather than figuring it out in his head, because it always can come out different when you do it than in your head. So yeah.
Are you thinking concepts for a song too, or are you just feeling like, you probably don't know the song's called The Return yet?
No,
right?
not at all.
So you're putting a vibe together.
I'm putting a vibe. Working with Logic, I know the type of sound he would like rap on like 1 week, and the next week I kind of know the type of vibes. You build a relationship with an artist over years and years, you know, like what kind of mood they're in at what time. So I knew he was in a rapping mood, and I knew that, you know, he needed like a fast tempo, so this is like 90 BPM. And I actually knew that he loves Nina Simone, so it was kind of a win-win when I was making it. I was like, man, like he'll definitely like this. So I had this sample. And so I immediately put some kicks on it.
Let me fly away.
And then
Let me fly away. Let me fly away. Let me fly away.
so that was like pretty much the loop, you know. One thing I really liked about Young Sinatra is that Bobby Tarantino 2 was like all 808s and stuff. And I think I used the 808 one time maybe on Young Sinatra 4 on Everybody Dies. But this was just like a soul bass, you know, just like a finger bass. I did a weird ass rhythm on it for some reason, but it kind of worked. It was like, with the drums it kind of sounded cool. Pretty simple, man, just staying on one note, but that's kind of just like the rhythm, you know, kind of just pushes it.
Why do you think that you use a lot of 808s in Bobby Tarantino, not so much here? Like, what does that create?
Like urban street music, trap music is like the 808. That's what it is.
That's the knock.
That's the knock.
That's
it's just the bottom, that bass, you know, like when you're in the whip, you know, and like in the 90s and stuff, in the early 2000s, people weren't even using 808s like that. Up until like maybe Lex Luger. Like I credit Lex Luger a lot back in the day, like doing the Waka Flocka stuff.
Yep.
He was the first one to bring that, honestly, like the trap, like with the hi-hats and the 808. And honestly, ever since then, the 808's been prominent, and people haven't even been using like real basses anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because the 808s are so hard, and that takes up so much of the space in a song. So it's kind of like a cheat code, honestly, like if you have a nice hard 808. But for this,
Because then you could build everything off that.
we built
That's
everything.
just like the foundation.
That's the foundation, yeah. Like you have a good 808 and a lead line, like we talked about for BT2. It's a full spectrum of the sonics. But for this,
You actually have bass.
bass.
And that's what's creating.
Yeah, because
the-
when like Kanye and Talib were making those songs back in the day, like they weren't using 808s. You know what I mean? And that's the emotion I was trying to capture. So yeah, just a bass line, and then I wanted to switch it up for the second half of the verse and just add a little bit more. And Kanye did this on I Wonder, where he follows the lead line like if you like in the verse. So that's literally what I did for the verse section, the second half of this verse section.
Let me fly away. Let me fly away. Let me fly away.
Super simple. It just follows the vocals, but with everything together, it kind of comes together really nice. And that's the only parts I added to the. And what's really cool about this synth, this Mini Moog synth, is that this is the synth I used on all the old Young Sinatra mixtapes. Like I downloaded it again because I didn't have it on this computer, but I downloaded it again because I knew I used this on like the bass on Mind the Logic. It was the same bass I used for this. You know what I mean?
How important was it for you to sprinkle some of those gems? Because I feel like
Yeah.
Bob did it, some with the rhyming.
Yeah.
You did it with some with like little things here and there, like
Yeah.
the master sound, like you already had on a previous Undeniable song, like the Dear God, like I Get Up.
Exactly.
Like, it's kind of like an homage to like, hey, if you've been on this journey, here's a couple things to just kind of like let you know we still remember.
That's what it
that past
is.
was
That's,
like.
you said it best, man. It's just literally something to remind the old fans, like, we haven't forgot, you know what I mean? And like that emotion when I was making those mixtapes back then, I was so young and like had no idea, like honestly what I was doing. And it was just like experimentation. So like I wanted to channel that too, you know what I mean? Kind of like not really knowing like, you know, like, cause with the success and stuff, it's people are like, it's hard to go back to this sound, but you know, I think it was cool to just kind of bring us back to that and just keep us leveled, you know. It was really cool to do.
It's a hell of a journey. I was telling Bob, like, you know, for his, we were talking at his house, like, big ass house in the studio.
It's nuts.
When you guys made it, it was in the basement. Same
Yeah.
for you, like, we're in your house now.
Yeah.
Like, we come a long way from Maryland. When
Yeah, that's crazy actually, man. Like thinking about that, if I would have told myself back then, like all the stuff you just said, I would have been like, damn, that's crazy, you know. So it's cool when I hear people like say that because it kind of reminds me too, like, damn,
you
for
put
real,
a lot
for real.
on the line too. I mean, like we've talked
100%.
about this before, but it was like you're going
Yeah,
to med
man.
school, like
Yeah.
what that means to like, you know, tell your
Yeah.
family I'm gonna leave this to
Yeah,
like
man.
pursue dreaming. Like that's
Yeah, it's full circle, man, for real, for real. It feels really good to say, like, man, we stuck to our guns, you know, and we didn't really change up. And to let y'all know we ain't change up, we're gonna do this, you know what I mean? At the height of our career,
Right.
we're gonna do this, you know? So I think it's cool. I think the fans really appreciate it too, you know, more than anything. They realize, like, that we care about them.
was The Return the first song you worked on for this project?
I think it was definitely one of the first ones that sparked the idea of like, damn, like we can actually do this. There's a song called Ordinary Day that's on the album that we probably made 3 years ago, and for some reason, well, not for some reason, the last couple albums, like it just didn't cohesively fit with the album. So but we knew it was a great song. We always saved it, and it finally made that. So we did that, but I don't want to say that was the first one because that didn't spark the album. I want to say it was this
because that's what it feels like. It's like The Return. It's
yeah, 100%. There was a song called Thank You, the intro.
Yep.
Shout out to my boy Vante, man. Bob was in New York. That might have been before this, where he did that intro where he like knew he was like already thanking the fans. Like I said, man, the fans, dude. He loves his fans. So that might have been the first one where he was shouting out the fans, and he had them do like the voicemails and stuff like that. But this was the one where it's like, all right, now I know how I'm gonna like approach the raps. Do you know what I mean? And just the intensity and the aggression and yeah, for sure. And I'm really glad he picked this one because I think I sent it to him, and maybe he didn't rap on it. And then we were in the studio. Honestly, it might have been the same day we were like finishing up some BT2 stuff, like Yuck, I think, or something. It was around that time when
he had that aggression.
So I played him this beat, and he was like, "Yo, that's hard." And he wrote the first verse, maybe. He definitely wrote the first verse, like right in front of me, like in the studio, like as the beat was playing, just off my laptop. And I feel like we knew then, like, okay, this is something, you know? Yeah.
Everybody Dies. How did this one come about?
Yo, this might be my favorite one.